So the reason why parentified child usually goes to substance is not for the highs, actually. It's to numb that hypervigilance and worry thoughts of looking for safety. Whenever people find out that I'm a psychiatrist, they're like, tell me what's wrong with me. Like, what's going on?
Yeah. And that's part of my recovery journey is that my feelings and my emotions are on God. God is God.
No matter where you are, what diagnosis you have is an image of God. No matter what happens, like, I know that God has me, and I think that gives me confidence to take more risks. If you're a high achiever and you're wondering why you keep on going to substance to calm down your brain, this video might be for you. Because a lot of high achievers with parentified childhood, substance doesn't start as a rebellion. It actually starts as a relief. And relief and rest was a foreign concept to your nervous system since childhood. When you grew up needing to be hyper-vigilant and alert, maybe emotionally, maybe a lot of fighting, domestic violence in the house, or maybe passive aggressiveness or a lot of sarcastic remarks that you just really have to pay attention what the adult really meant. Relationally, maybe there was a love bombing and then cold shoulders by your parents. Or practically, maybe there was no food or running water or electricity in the house and you didn't know where it was going to come from month to month. Your body learned that vigilance and worrying and being concerned provided a sense of safety. So when the hypervigilance linked to performance, that's really interesting because there was no safe space at home. A lot of times these kids start to go to their peers for support and validation. But let's say the bullying happened or the clique rejected you. Now peers are irrelevant. This is really the point where a lot of kids cross to talk to strangers on the internet or, date a guy who just obviously wants that one thing or uses them or run away from the house. But here's an interesting thing that crosses over appropriate relationship because they got rejected and they don't feel safe at home. They got rejected and didn't feel safe at the peers or at school. Now they're going to more inappropriate way to find safety and sense of belonging. So really, in the parentified childhood where the child doesn't have a parent figure to nurture and guide them, there's two things at play. So there's a need to perform, maybe be a peacemaker, over worrier, overcompensator as a parentified child, but also a reject because you didn't really feel accepted as who you are in the family dynamic. You didn't get accepted as who you are in the friends dynamic. So both pathways are telling you, I'm not safe by being who I am, and I'm not safe anywhere. So the reason why parentified child usually goes to substance is not for the highs, actually. It's to numb that hypervigilance and worry thoughts of looking for safety. Because here's point number one. Substance produced something. They gave them something that their parents could not give them. Substance numbed out the fear of danger and fear of worthlessness and fear of loneliness. Your nervous system never learned to regulate from hypervigilance, performance, and collapse, hypervigilance, performance, and collapse. But substance kind of stops the cycle for a while. And it's not a moral failure. It is a result of dysfunctional relationship and lack of regulation and lack of adult figures regulating for you as a child. But an unfortunate but so real reality about this is that rest was supposed to be a gift, not something that you numb yourself into or collapse into. And the reason why I'm making this video for you is that I want you to experience true rest, not artificial rest. I had a patient who had a history of pretty significant substance abuse with meth and alcohol. But when I was doing his intake and looking at his history, it was not a typical what you would think a drug addict is. He was editor-in-chief in his high school newspaper, in 2 sports and in varsity and getting letters and almost got a full scholarship at a college. What was really interesting was that he was a very highly functional, high achiever and a rule follower and very disciplined person, that he was actually limiting his substance use. Like, I'll only vape in the car, like when I'm driving, or 2 puffs a day. And he was trying to control it. And there was so much shame attached to it because it was not aligned with his personality and character traits, right? He's not this free thinking, free floating, creative type. He was very regimented, high performer, but his intake was typical. He didn't really feel valued or seen in a childhood. He went to friendship. There was a breakup and it was classic that he didn't feel safe wherever he was. and by whoever he was with, and the performance didn't pan out the way that he wanted to. So then he went to substance just to numb out his hypervigilance and overperformance. And this is a very classic case for high achievers who's reaching for substance for final relief. Here's a point number two. Constant achievement makes the brain want relief. It cannot continue achieving and achieving and achieving, but not peace. And this is what I mean. Dopamine is a reinforcement neurotransmitter. And what I mean when we say dopamine, a lot of times we thought that it was like a dopamine rush rewards and a positive reinforcement, but actually it can be used for negative reinforcement, something you're avoiding a negative consequence that you don't want, right? Again, maybe, your parents are fighting unless you perform well academically. So you keep on doing that because you don't want the negative consequence. Dopamine can actually be elevated for those situations too, like in those fight or flight. But imagine if you're in the fight or flight dopamine chasing mode all the time, there's no rest. And your brain cannot be sustained at that level of intensity. But they don't know how to stop performing. So what do? You go for temporary relief that substance can produce. But if you step back, if this is you in your life and the fork in the road, do you see that constantly achieving is not going to give you the true peace? And maybe continue to drink after you overperform. That cycle is not going to get you to true relief and true peace. It's interesting that there's a verse in Mark 8:36. It said, what good is it to gain the world and forfeit his soul? And a lot of times I see this in psychiatry, and we don't explore this in training enough, is that there's no spiritual rest when we're always achieving to validate our spiritual needs by concrete productivity, concrete relationship status, concrete achievement status and prestige, but it doesn't really fulfill our spirit. And what I want you to experience is not just a relief or numbing of the pain. I want you to find that true rest. Because this is the part that most people miss. Achieving more, reading this book or doing this program, going to this retreat, just so that you can kind of gain some insight and knowledge and go back to the grind and achieving more and collapsing more and numbing more. That's not the answer. And this is no matter what your diagnosis is, and even if you don't have a mental health diagnosis, I see this constantly. Everybody is dealing with the same problem is, can I find rest without performing? Can I be okay just being who I am? And that really is a spiritual question. But if you don't reparent and re-nurture that cycle, the cycle will not stop. We have to do something different. And point number three, if you're relating to any of this cycle of high achievers using substance, I don't know where you are and that severity of the substance use. But eventually, what started as a relief for your nervous system now is destroying your life and people around you. But I just want you to know that what looks like a self-destruction right now often started as a self-soothing adaptation for your nervous system, because your nervous system and the inner child in you never got comforted or soothed when they were young. And I just want you to know that God as a parent is not like our imperfect parents. Isaiah 42:3 says, a bruised reed he will not break. We're all broken. He's not going to judge us by the level of drinking that we had or what we did in the past. Your worth is independent from what you have done and what you will do and what you're doing right now. And you know what I found with people with substance abuse history, especially when they're in the thick of it? They don't need me to say that alcohol is bad for you. They don't need me to say, oh, THC actually worsens your anxiety. Maybe the younger adults, who don't know that, maybe they can benefit from that. But a lot of times people already heard the consequences and result of substance use. They just needed a safe place to rest. They just needed somebody to just say, you're okay. And actually, without even prescribing, that actually probably did more healing in one sitting than anything that I could have prescribed. And that's why I teach the RPC method of reflect, protect, and connect. It's a framework that I designed so that you can get in touch with your parentified child inside and stop this madness. If you want a structured way and comprehensive information on mental health, really regarding regulation and self-parenting techniques, this is what the course is for. So if the substance became a doorway for your rest, it doesn't mean that you're broken. It means that you didn't know where else to go. But I want you to know that there's a safer way to stop and rest, and it's not over. You have a whole journey in front of you. And right now, I'll let you try my course for free. So I'm going to put a link in the description box so that you can have access to the first module completely free, no risk attached, and just hear what I have to say about where you are in your life and where you might be able to go. So if you listen to the video so far, share this episode with somebody that you think could benefit, because I think we can all learn and grow and be more nurtured today. Have a great day, and I'll see you in the next episode.
It's a really nice day.